But there is so much to talk about, and once he comes in, we'll not allow him, but I'm sure he'll have lots to say in terms of what he announced. What I did do in terms of my normal social media ad is I coined it, and he smiled when he told me this, but it is his self-titled last national budget as the Minister of Finance, or as the Premier Minister of Finance for Bermuda, based upon the fact that under the PLP guidelines or the PLP rules, PLP Constitution, there is an election every 4 years for the leader of the party, and he said it many years ago actually, that this would be his last term as Premier Minister of Finance, which means that he is not going to run for re-election come October, and so at that point in time, you'll have a new Premier or a new leader of the party, and then under normal circumstances, that person does become the Premier of the country. And so at that point in time, he will not be the Premier, and of course, each Premier has the opportunity themselves to decide on who their cabinet is going to be, and that person will then decide who they would like to be. It was interesting also to note that constitutionally, it does not mean that he cannot serve as the Minister of Finance, because it's simply going to be a matter of the next leader asking him, and then, of course, him deciding to say yes or no. So it doesn't mean automatically that he'll not be the Minister of Finance, but it does mean that he'll not be the Premier because, as I said before, he has said already many, many times, and said it again on Friday, that he is not going to stand again for Premier, so he'll not be the Premier come time. So for me, it's exciting also because today represents the 4th anniversary of the Insight program. And the Insight program itself started based upon, I was driving one evening, I contacted Mr. Glenn Blakeney, who is a wonderful person, and my first interview to start the show was with the Honorable Premier, Mr. E. David Brett. He is smiling now, and those of you who are on Facebook will see him as he sits in to join. I do believe he is probably physically exhausted because the budget process takes a lot. There's lots of long nights, long days, and the rest of it to get it all right. And then he stands up on a Friday and reads for about 2 hours. Even that takes a lot. You have to drink lots of water and what have you to keep yourself going. But as we know, he has delivered his budget, and tonight we're going to talk about it. One of my personal comments or my personal interest, I guess, is the degree to which we are now factoring in the new corporate income tax. That is a significant portion of the overall budget, and we'll get to that as we go. But tonight also is, and I said in my social media post, that there are 3 generations, Mr. Premier.
There are 3 generations, I see this.
And there are 3 because I don't think I'm old enough to be your father, but I'm old enough to be your big brother, that's for sure.
Wow. Anthony, you're old enough to be my father.
I'm old enough to be your big brother, that's for sure.
You're old enough to be my father,
and then you'll be old enough to be my son's his father. So there are 3 generations.
Yes,
let me leave it there.
Correct.
I'll go from there. And so good evening, Mr. Premier.
Good evening to you, Anthony. Good evening to you, Callan. Good evening to the listening audience. I apologize for my slight tardiness. We were polishing off our slides for the
for tomorrow. That's right.
Budget breakfast.
Yes.
Tomorrow,
which again is quite a task, or quite a challenge, I guess, but also interesting. I trust that some of the comments tonight would further prepare you for tomorrow. Although tonight, well, anyway, we'll see how it goes. And so to Callan also, thank you for coming on by. The reason why Callan, my son Callan, is here is not because it's my son, actually. He's here because literally on Friday, I was at work, and he sent me a message to say, Daddy, are you listening to the budget? Because he had some questions or some comments about it. And so I answered that. And then on Friday evening, when we was having dinner, he talked about it some more and had many, many questions. And I said to him, well, I'm having this show on Sunday, and rather than tell me all these comments, let's just come and have the conversation. And so again, thank you for coming. And Mr. Premier, thank you for accommodating us all. And so now we can start.
No problem whatsoever. My voice is a little bit better, but it's been a weekend, and I'm off again tomorrow because we got CARICOM heads of government. So it's just a week.
Got you. As long as you're not traveling by New York, because the flights to New York are canceled based upon the storm. So you cannot go. You have to go.
I'm going through Charlotte, so hopefully that's not canceled.
You're leaving?
We'll see. I'm even late. Not early.
At 3 o'clock, give or take.
Or something like that, yeah.
Well, you may get another surprise. In any event, we think that we know everybody, but what I'll say is let's get started, first of all, by everybody introducing yourselves, because, again, we think we know each other, but we don't, or we like to have people introduce themselves. And so whether it be Callan or Mr. Premier, introduce yourselves.
I'm going to let the young man go first.
Go from there.
My name's Callan, and I I've just finished my degree in May, studying actuarial science in New York at St. John's University. After finishing, I've now been back on Ireland since then, and have started working as an actuarial analyst.
Where are you working at?
I'm working at Arch.
Gotcha. And do you want to give a very brief introduction in terms of how you got to be at Arch as a young person?
I guess it is a bit of a long story, but to start, I was at Bermuda College during my dual enrollment days. And during one of the classes, actually, Mr. Grandison, the former CEO, gave us a presentation during one of our classes. And then I followed up with an email, and that was able to lead to an internship opportunity and scholarship opportunity, and now this, the full-time employment. So yeah, very grateful for the opportunities I've been given, and happy that I've been able to work to be able to meet those opportunities.
Okay.
One of our amazing Bermuda companies, Arch.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to say this also as the Premier gets settled in terms of, I think Kellen, as a young person, represents what the government has done in the past in terms of, number one, the dual enrollment program, which allows students that have reached an appropriate grade to go to Bermuda College before they graduate from high school, and to do so free of charge based upon the grade. And so that took place. And also, as one of the party initiatives, it was a question of the trying to ensure that persons that would not otherwise be in touch with people got a chance to do so. And so that's what he did in this instance. And so you did benefit from that whole government program around increased exposure and also the dual enrollment program. So again, thank you for that. And to go from strength to strength. Mr. Premier, you've been around for a long time, and
no problem. It's just a little warm in here, so
yes.
I'm going to take off this fleece, but it's okay. I can answer the question.
Sure. Who are you?
Who am I? My name is
What's different about you?
There's nothing much different about me, except for, my name is David Burt. Since July 19, 2017, I served as Premier of Bermuda. I've been Minister of Finance on and off. I am the grateful father of two and the loving husband of one, and I am just grateful to continue to serve the people of this country in this capacity. And I recognize that I have been endowed by certain gifts by our Creator, and I am blessed that I've been able to use those gifts and talents towards the service of the people of the country I was born in and the country I love.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's dive in. What I would like to do is give you the opportunity to start off with to give an overview of the budget, because, believe it or not, there are people in Bermuda that have not heard about the budget except for these headlines that they see, and I think it's appropriate for you to give an overview, and then we can ask different questions about different things that I find to be important.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get one more thing, Anthony, so I can actually follow along.
Sure.
Why this thing is off? How do you want to do this? Do you want me to run through the whole thing?
No, not really. I want you,
because it's a long budget. You want highlights? What do you want?
Yeah, I want you to say, what is the overall framing of the budget that you would want people to know that have not listened to the budget thus far?
Well, the main thing is that, as you said, it is the first budget that's fully impacted by the corporate income tax. But the reality is that it's a tax-cutting budget. No one in this country will pay more in taxes. Everyone will pay less taxes. Businesses will pay less taxes. Individuals will pay less taxes. Farmers will pay less taxes. People will pay less customs duty. People will pay less vehicle licensing fees. So there's a lot. So let me just run through it. From the perspective of the largest overall employee payroll tax cut in history, because other times we've reduced the tax burden for some, we've increased it significantly for others, and the net effect has been additional funds. This is a net effect of a reduction of funds to the government, which is not something that governments do very often, and it is significant. And as I said, it's more targeted towards the middle class, because taxes for working class persons are already pretty low, but people in the middle are also squeezed, and that's the message that we wanted to make sure that we relayed. That persons who, for instance, if you were making $96,000 a year, you're going to see a savings of $840 a year in taxes. Right now, you pay $4,680, but now you'll pay $3,840. And so those amounts of savings go for, as I said, every single person who's employed. In addition to that, from a company perspective, all companies or employers will pay less payroll taxes. The only persons who we did not reduce payroll taxes for are very, very small businesses because they're already at 1%. Okay. So they're already at the low level. But large companies will have their payroll tax reduced. Everyone's payroll tax is going down by 0.5%, with the exception of retail and restaurants, which are going down by a full percentage point. In addition, there's a recategorization. So nursing homes were typically in just the regular payroll tax bracket. They've been moved to a special payroll tax bracket, which is the same as the Bermuda Hospitals Board, which is now at 3%. So that has been moved there as well. Okay. Those are the main tax items. The customs duty reductions are, we've eliminated customs duty on electricity. So we knew that the electricity tax was in place, and now that electricity tax is completely and 100% gone. We are reducing or eliminating duty on a wider range of essential goods. This is in response to the Affordable Bermuda agenda from the Minister of Home Affairs. There's a 10% reduction in private car licensing fees. And then, of course, we are promised to exempt the employer portion of payroll tax on the first $96,000 of salary for Bermudian employees aged 65 or plus, to encourage persons to stay and to remain in the workforce. On the capital side, on the spending side, there's a significant capital investment. This is the largest planned capital investment in Bermuda for 18 years, since 2008, 2009. The amount is $182 million. We are next year will approach 2% of GDP with a capital budget that's expected to be over $200 million. The largest recipients of these, of course, are from a capital budget side, is the Bermuda Housing Corporation, which is getting $27 million, not only for new units, but also to upgrade existing dwellings. Very important. Whether or not those are, the infrastructure in places such as Cedar Park, Mary Victoria Road, Fenton's Drive, Alexandra Road, all those particular places that are public housing that do need upgrades as well. So there's significant money there. While we're building new places, we know we also have to deal with the ones that we have, and to make sure that we make sure that people who are in BHC sponsored housing to have appropriate and sound places to live. Significant expansion, a 71% increase in the capital funding given to the Ministry of Education, to the tune of $14 million for work on school buildings and also matters related to technology. Spring Bridge will start. Tynes Bay Waste Energy full refurbishment is set to start. Continue work on roads works and dangerous walls. New buses coming. Continued replacement. And there's also, Anthony, a new line item, which is a $3 million line item for community improvement projects, which will be sponsored from MPs. So it's a whole new thing. And then finally, if we look at the overview of the budget as well, there's one thing that I do want to touch on, which is the spending side. There's significant additional investment, especially on the healthcare side, and I don't want that in of itself to be lost. So when we look at healthcare in this particular budget, we have a $187 million additional, which is going to go to healthcare, expanded healthcare support. That is going to go of significant money to the Bermuda Hospitals Board. Also, we're going to do matters related to HIP and future care to continue the expansion that has happened there. In addition, we're going to expand preventative access with additional number of primary care visits with a set copay of $25. So we're making sure to roll out continued preventative measures. We're going to expand future care support for seniors. If you remember, the Tax Reform Commission had a waterfall, which had said a number of things. And the first waterfall they had was expanding future care support for seniors. So this budget will fund health care for 2,200 seniors under a defined income level. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that we relieve the pressure on those persons who are the most vulnerable in society. In addition to that, there's $23 million investments in the public sector, because we know that we're going through a salary review that is there to boost salaries in the public sector to make sure they match the private sector so that we can retain persons inside the public sector. So that's important. And then finally, there is $14 million of transformational funding. And this is in the area of Bermuda's on-chain or digital finance economy, entrepreneurship in cooperatives, artificial intelligence deployment, and as well food security and supply chain resilience. So those are a number of things there. I mean, there's a number of other things inside the budget, but we'll be able to touch on those with questions. Because, you know, I was speaking for 2 hours, so I could speak for 2 hours to go over the budget right now, but that would take the whole show. Sure. It would be much of a point to do that.
No problem. So what I want to do is thank you certainly for the review, and it's amazing. We talked about this on the way here today, that not everybody listens to the whole budget process, and so it's important to some people and others, and interesting, right? But to others, like, okay, whatever, whatever.
Well, and so as a former accountant general, you would be interested in the budget.
Oh yeah, yes, well, yes. And so again, that's why we're here today.
Other people just want to know how much their tax. Are going to be about.
And one thing is, and I said this, a younger person, they were quite surprised. So for the first time, the overall revenue for the government is going to exceed $2 billion with a B. And that was something that, okay, wow, that woke the person up. And so that's a big thing.
A lot of money.
And you get to spend it, not just you, but you.
I don't get to spend it. I get to.
You get to decide.
No, I get to lay out how the money is spent, and the Parliament will either approve or reject it. Once the Parliament approves it, then the ministers are authorized to spend the money.
Right.
But remember, we do have a democracy in this country, and no money is authorized to be spent unless the Parliament says so.
And that's, then half smiling, but that's an important point, I think, to note that in all seriousness, that the government, the ministers are not authorized to spend the money personally. You approve it, and it goes through a significant process in terms of ultimately the accountant general and her team or their team will be the ones that actually make the payments. And so you can't say, go and spend $50, for example.
No minister has any authorization to authorize the expenditure of any funds.
And I think that's a very, very important point.
It's always important because, people always talk all this foolishness about people doing this and people doing that. No.
Correct. Okay.
The way that our system of government has worked out, only public officers can authorize expenditure.
Right. Now, let's talk about one thing I want to start with is the whole CIT, the corporate income tax. Okay. What I believe, and I'll say this more than once, I guess, is that you happen to be in the right seat at the right time to be the recipient of the person that gets to, as the Minister of Finance, to oversee what is like a significant change in the overall economy of Bermuda based upon the corporate income tax. There's been lots of debate in terms of what the amount's going to be and how it should be spent. And for the first time, there is now a big number in the budget that relates to corporate income tax. And then there's commentary about how it's going to be spent. So talk a bit about that, please. And then my son, I think, has some questions about the whole corporate income tax regime.
So the global minimum tax was established we put in the law, the CIT Act in 2023, came into effect in the 1st of January, 2025. We started collecting payments last year. And it's not until, I think, it's either December or January. I think it's January. Yes, it's January. As per the law, that those funds actually get transferred into the consolidated fund. And as you realize, the budget is actually the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the consolidated fund. And so we put that forward. And inside of that, there is, of course, the line items for various revenue. And one item of revenue is corporate income tax. So the statement did say that $279 million was transferred into the government accounts in January from the Corporate Income Tax Agency. We're expecting to get up to $750 million next fiscal year, and that's the reason why those figures are so large insofar as $1 billion worth of revenue. As I said, it is only assigned on large multinational companies. The rules are that those companies need to have over 750 million euros of global revenue and operate in more than 6 locations in order to do it. And as I said, this is a global tax, so companies cannot leave the jurisdiction and not pay it. This is paid wherever you are.
And so with that, what comments do you have about the public commentary from some quarters, right? That, once it's introduced, many comments will leave. Do you have any data to show if anybody has left?
That's an absolute nonsense. That's an absolute nonsense. What we have seen is the exact opposite. what we've seen is that we've put together a regime, because here's the thing, and it's Anthony, you served with me for a long time. You know the foolishness that we have to put up with. For some reason, people just happen to think that the Progressive Labor Party just doesn't understand economics. And just the reality, I'm sorry, we went to the exact same schools as everyone else went to. We learned the exact same lessons. We got the exact same stuff. We get it. We understand. We understand the way Bermuda's economy works. We understand the way the international business sector works. We understand the way that global finance and global economics work.
Yes.
We just have a different approach to the way in which we decide to have the priorities when we're in charge. So let me just get that out of the way.
Sure.
That is purely uninformed commentary. It is a global tax. You cannot escape the tax if you go to another jurisdiction. You still have to pay it.
Right.
That is the fact. What we have seen is more companies coming here because of the regime of which we set up. And we know that a number of companies, I'm not going to state here, but we know that companies are relocating to Bermuda because our regime of which we set up is an advantageous regime. And they want to be here.
Okay.
Because you have to pay these taxes anyways. So the question is, where are you going to be based to pay these taxes? And so that's what we have. So it would be false to say that companies are moving. That is not. Now, there may be some companies who adjust their strategies and all the rest, but in the main, we do not have that from the insurance sector. We don't have that from the large sector. And we are seeing other companies from certain sectors come in. And I don't want to disclose what those sectors are here because for the reasons. But we do have more persons coming in.
Okay. You want to ask a question, Jeff?
Sure. So I guess first would be to say that it is a big milestone to have the first surplus that we've had in so many years. In the budget, the first thing I noticed was that you stated a modified cash surplus. What is the difference between the modified surplus?
Great question. So budgets are done. So when we do our budget book, and when you look at the numbers, these are all on a modified cash basis. Now, I'm not an accountant. Your father would be able to probably explain it better than I would be able to explain it. However, we have, when we do the financial statements are done in accrual format, but budgets are done on a modified cash basis. And so that's the reason why the financial sector inserted that language. It's modified cash, and that's the way we do budgets. So I know that's not a help. It's basically done on cash, but it's not fully cash because for some reason they call it modified cash, but it's mainly cash. So what we do when we do budgets like this, and this page where you see on the budget book, that is largely on the cash that goes in, the cash that goes out, rather than the accruals, which will be how much we build, even though we haven't got the money, this is what it is. So it's a modified cash basis.
Right. Yeah. And then based on the budget, it was stated that there are going to be 3 different types of funds that excess funds would be added into, either the stabilization fund, which would be used as a cushion during drawdowns. So my question on that one is, I do agree with it from a broad standpoint, but I'm wondering, is there like a goal, like a target that the government would have for like a maximum amount? Because it wouldn't be wise to do it forever because that would just be overtaxing the population. But like,
say it one more time. Is there a target for what?
For like a cap for the stabilization fund, because for example, it stated that we'll be adding 100 million each year.
A fair point in comment, and fair point in comment on a number of various things, right? And so, my time horizon does not project that. Okay. The way that we do budgets, we project out 3 years.
Okay.
And so, from a 3-year perspective, that's where it is. I mean, right now, it's going to take about 3 years for us to understand how the corporate income tax really works, if you get what I'm saying. And then other ministers of finance in the future may be able to make different decisions. Now, it may come to a perspective that we're actually underestimating how much corporate income tax we're getting. And instead of on an average, we're getting 600 million, we might be getting 900 or a million. It might be more steady. And then there is the way in which you change the calculations. Right now, we're going from the best guess and estimates of which we have. And so from that perspective, but the point of which you're making makes sense. And there's a change here from our perspective. And it's an important point to note. So when the corporate income tax first came to place, my position was always that I did not want it to be revenue accretive, which means I didn't want it to add to the overall government revenue. So if there's revenue coming from this source, I wanted to reduce taxes somewhere else in order to reduce that. Now, as you can see, that is not what we have done. That is not what we've done.
Right.
We have followed the advice to, rather than to rely on a volatile, stream of taxes, to focus on the repayment of debt, the building up of financial assets, and then in the future you may have more flexibility to do certain things. You might be able to then adjust your fiscal rules, the one that we've laid out right now. The stability fund is there to make sure that those things, but your point is valid. What happens when it's too much? The reality is when you have those funds generate interest, and that interest does go into the accounts anyways, so you do get to use it. But there will come a point in time when maybe it's like, we have too much money. Maybe we need to start giving that back. That'll be for a future decision. Maybe when you're on an MP, Callan. What was it? But the question you're asking is a good and a valid one. We just don't understand from a time horizon perspective what the corporate income tax revenues will look like. So we're still projecting $600 million a year. It might be higher. And then there'll be different decisions that are made. But the three funds are the stabilization fund, the sinking fund. So we're putting $300 million away to begin every year. And then following that, there is the sovereign wealth fund. I will state that from my perspective, I think a sovereign wealth fund is important. When we and we're going to legislate this year, when money's going to go into it, it'll be a different question. But I think it is important. And the example I will give is I'll give two countries. I'll give the United Kingdom and I'll give Norway. They both had access to North Sea oil. The United Kingdom put it as part of their regular budget.
Gotcha.
Norway put all of their proceeds inside of a sovereign wealth fund. Norway has one of the largest sovereign wealth funds right now. They're able to provide massive benefits to their citizens, and they've built this up over time. And we all know the state of the United Kingdom's finances. And so, as much as I would have wanted to lay out a budget that would say, we're providing free healthcare for everyone, we're doing this for everyone, we're doing this for everyone, all the rest, it's not the most responsible thing to do. We will get there. We're beginning to start. You pay down the debt, you have $25 million more a year, then there's something else you can do. There's something else you can do. We will get there, but it's just not the best choice to do everything all at once.
And to be honest, that's something where I think is important. Yeah, that's something that's important because I think, number one, we heard the big number about the corporate income tax. And then on Friday, not for the first time, but it was a big introduction in terms of those three funds. And what I want you to do, Premier, please, is to restate the funds and explain what they are. Because again, for the listening audience, we assume everybody knows and they don't.
Oh, that's correct.
So let's talk again about the fact you got all this extra money. What you can do?
So the first one is the sinking fund. We have the sinking fund already. The sinking fund, the Tax Reform Commission recommended $200 million a year going to the sinking fund to go ahead and repay debt. Now, we're not doing that this year because we're repaying $605 million of debt, so it doesn't make sense to put money in a fund that you're going to take out of the fund to pay the debt anyway. So we can say we're putting in the fund, but we're also paying the money out. The second one is the stability fund. The stability fund is because people will assume that corporate income tax revenues will be variable, and if there's a low year, you might need some money from this fund to top it up. The Tax Reform Commission recommended $100 million go into the stability fund every year, and we are planning to put both the 200 into the sinking fund and the 100 million into the stability fund starting next fiscal year, not the one that this budget is talking about, 2027-28, because we need to get ready to pay more debt when more debt becomes due.
So for the next year, you're going to put $300 million in the
sinking fund and stability fund. No, 200 in the sinking fund, 100 in the stability fund. The final fund is the sovereign wealth fund. And so those are the three funds. So we have the sinking fund already. The stability fund will need to be created. Now, there's a question as to whether or not the stability fund will be an actual fund that we set up, or whether or not we'll just, keep it in accounts and say this is the amount that's there. There's a question of which way that will act, and we'll legislate that. And then the final thing will be a sovereign wealth fund.
And I hope that I'm able to give one more interview of you before you don't run again.
Absolutely.
Because one of it is about the legacy, right? And I made a note already that from my perspective, it's that this year is a legacy budget to some degree because you do at least one thing, well, two things. One is that you get to budget for a full year of corporate income tax, which is that big number. And secondarily, you get a chance to solidify the idea of a sovereign wealth fund. And those are big things to do for a country. And so I want to talk some more about that, but not right now.
No problem, Anthony.
Okay, so my listening audience here is now that I'm going to get another interview with the Premier before
Of course.
before it's not going to the Premier. So good. Yeah, can I get another question?
Yeah, and so with regards to the sinking fund, I mean, I understand legislating or deciding to do $200 million, so you have a bit of flexibility with your repayment schedule. But so the next bond due after 27 is 29, correct?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay. And so why would we not decide to be more aggressive in terms of matching the payments that are due in 29, 30, and 32?
Fair comment.
That's a good question.
No, but the fact is we don't know what the future will hold. And I think that the Tax Reform Commission went along a baseline of saying that, this is the things, but if you then are more aggressive on, just purely paying down debt or purely doing these things, then everyone else gets, there's no relief for anyone else. There's no relief from payroll tax. There's no relief for reductions. There's no additional funds for these things. I mean, some people may say, let's just take it all and put it here. I just don't think that's responsible. We had a bipartisan tax reform commission. The bipartisan tax reform commission did come up with a set of recommendations, and I owe it to them, especially as I pointed them, to give credence to the significant amount of work of which they did. Remember, they analyzed a significant amount. They had over 300 meetings. They did numerous things. They did modeling. They did all the rest. And, when someone from the One Bermuda Alliance, the OBA, the business community, the labor community, the third sector, et cetera, all the rest. So so from that perspective, it is something that can be viewed as a broad cross-section of persons who have put forward these recommendations that I think can be easy defensible. And so that's the direction of travel. I mean, I can assure you that some people on the Tax Reform Commission wanted to take that route, and others wanted to say, screw the debt, and we come to a place in the middle.
Okay.
You good?
Sure.
Okay. So thanks, Mr. Premier, about that. Now let's go back a minute just to clarify what you said about the payroll tax. You said that the payroll tax, we know that you reduced them all. Is it correct that the target now is to reduce the total payroll tax amount that's received by government?
Ask the question again.
So you reduced the payroll tax on the various bands?
Correct.
And for the employers?
Correct.
So is it correct that the intention is to reduce the total payroll tax revenue to government?
I mean, that's a tricky question because that is a lot of things. So it doesn't, I mean, if there is a large number of growth next year, then there may be more payroll tax revenue. But all other things being equal, then yes, payroll tax revenue would go down. Okay.
And I'm asking the question because it's important in my mind to understand that the corporate income tax brings in lots of revenue. And then you said you wanted to, ideally, for it to be neutral in terms of non-accretive. So, which means that, of course, it's not going to increase overall government revenue.
But that's what I wanted to do. Right. That was my original policy. That is not the policy of the government currently. Okay. So just to, again, to emphasize, right, Joanne, just to emphasize is that so I am a company. At the moment, I've been paying $1 million in, say, in various government taxes. The corporate income tax comes in. I have to pay that new 15%. So am I now paying my 15% plus what I paid before? Yes.
And what's the conversation there in terms of me as a corporate person saying this? I'm not happy now because I'm paying more than I otherwise would have.
I think that it's important to recognize that we have a global tax system, but also there is a new system of tax credits that persons can benefit from. Okay. And so I'm not going to get into the explanation of complex tax credits right now. Sure. Trust me, I'm not. But there's a number of various tax credits that persons can avail themselves of.
Okay. And so, again, to simplify it, I guess, would be then that the large companies that are paying the corporate income tax, they have an opportunity through the corporate tax credits to basically neutralize or to... I wouldn't go that far. I would say that there's other things that provide incentives for them to go ahead and invest in the economy. So you cannot offset global minimum taxes. That defeats the purpose. Yeah. So I don't want that to be the thing that comes out of this radio show because that is not factual. Okay, but I'm saying that, so as a company, there are ways for me to mitigate the impact. I wouldn't go that far. Okay. I'll figure out a way to explain it. But I mean is that it's not going to be a clearer way whereby I'm going to end up paying the total additional amount. People are paying an additional amount. That is what. How do we then get a savings though from what I've been paying all this time? Why are you saying that there's going to be a savings? Because I thought that was the idea in terms of ultimately you don't want me to be paying simply just paying more taxes. I want to have some sort of reduction or offset.
We are part of a global system that states what you are basically stating is not allowed. So we do not have that.
Okay, I'll figure it out a different way. Okay, no problem. Okay, all right. So that's the corporate income tax piece. Now let's talk a little bit more about the debt reduction, because in the pre-budget report, the idea was going to be to pay off the next tranche of debt that's due at $500 million, and in the budget, which everybody's happy with now, happier, I guess, you're going to pay off the entire 605.
I wouldn't go so far as to say everyone. Minister of Finance isn't happy, you know.
Okay.
The budget is a responsible budget.
Yes.
But we also have to balance about the fact that, you know, there is a desire for more relief.
Yes.
I made the decision that it would be wise to pay off the full 605 to not subject ourselves to refinancing risk. I did. That doesn't mean I like the decision.
Okay.
I would have liked to have filled up, you know, use that other $105 million in filling up, you know, the first 3 waterfalls and, you know, providing a significant benefit on, you know, tax on healthcare.
Yes.
But at the same point in time, you know, next year we could have a number of disasters, and, you know, with the insurance industry and different things, and we're stuck in a different space. So I think it makes sense to tread slowly rather than go all at once, because, you know, you're talking about a legacy budget, and the reality is I would like to have gone out and said, yeah, we got this. But when you start making those type of commitments, you have to follow them through year after year after year. And if you're not certain you're going to have the finance to do that, then you can, you know, leave the person who comes after you in a very difficult position, and that's not what I want to do.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
But some people are happy that we're paying off $605 million in debt.
Well, clearly, I mean, it's contrary to the show, but the soundbite is good in terms of government's going to pay off the entire tranche that's due next January. And so, from that point of view,
that was the decision that we made. As I said, but I'm just making the argument to say not everyone's happy about that.
Sure.
Because there are other people who said you should just stick with the $500 million and spent the rest on the people.
Gotcha. Fair enough. And then, Cannon, you had some questions or comments about the healthcare piece?
About the healthcare.
The debt first of all, and then go to healthcare.
Well, I guess in terms of providing immediate relief, I guess we could talk about that for a bit. I understand the vision to try to create immediate relief, but given that tax rates have already been reduced by quite a significant amount for lower income thresholds, it seems like it's not much more of a tax issue. It's more of an issue with Bermuda's supply, or an issue with the workers' salaries that's causing the problem. So is there like some way to tackle that through, or is there any thought about tackling that through strengthening unions or trying to increase local business competition to provide a more durable relief than just temporary tax cuts or tax breaks? So
I would say that, number one, they're not temporary, they're permanent. It's a very important point, because I don't want anyone to think their taxes are going to go up in the future, but I understand the question of which you are trying to ask. So, and I think that's why it's important to note that when we talk about this significant tax cut, you can't really cut taxes for those people at the lower bracket much more, because they've been reduced significantly. Like someone who's making $48,000 a year, there's not a lot of people in the country making $48,000 a year, for the record. But someone who is making $48,000 a year is paying 95% less taxes than they did before. So when we came to office, that person was paying $2,280 a year, and this year they're paying $120. It's a significant reduction. So we recognize that significant reduction on the first instance. Let's move to but people in the middle, for instance, people who are, you know, making $96,000 you know, at least getting $800 more a year. So that's a significant amount. People in the middle are the ones who are paying a significant amount of taxes are getting a larger tax break. It's hard to give a tax break to someone way at the bottom if they're only paying $240 in taxes, but they are going to get a break. Yes. They're going to go from $240 to $120 this year, but they've already gone from $2,280 down to $140 on the change of which we made before. To get back to your question, there's also the capacity of, and again, we have a competitive economy, so we want to give businesses a space in order to do this, is that if you reduce employer taxes, then employers have different options. You know, they can pocket it, they can increase their salaries, they can do things, and it all depends. The fact is that that's the way that you also create competition. And so we are reducing employer taxes. There was an argument that we should reduce it more. We could have reduced it more. That probably just would have meant that I would not have paid off $605 million in debt.
Okay,
because there's a significant amount of money that comes from employer payroll taxes. There's more money that comes from employer payroll taxes than comes from employee payroll taxes. It's a significant amount more.
So employers pay more than employees?
Correct.
Okay. And just quick
Let's
question.
see if I can pull up the model. Oh, I have the whole payroll tax model in front of me. Go ahead.
Because one question is the payroll tax amount for the lower threshold, the less than 48,000, it goes from 0.5 to 0.25. I guess the obvious question is why not just make it zero?
Yeah, no. Everyone has to pay some taxes.
Okay, so
and making it zero, because remember, we have marginal tax bands that affects everyone.
right, and and to listen to audience, I'm smiling. The guest this evening is the Premier and the Minister of Finance.
You know the
Minister
answer.
of
You're
Finance,
trying
right?
to confuse people on the radio.
And Kellen's here because he had some questions, and I wanted him to come and ask his questions directly. But the Premier just made the point, which I think is important, of course, is that the payroll tax bands are actually incremental. So it's not as if at less than 48 you pay 0.5, and beyond that you don't pay that portion. So everybody pays the first 0.5, well, now 0.25 and go up. And so I think it is important to say if you make it zero for those at 48,000 or less, it means it's zero for everybody.
Correct.
Even those that make $1 million, for example. And so I was being honest with my question, by the way, but when you answered it, it caused me to realize, let's make sure we explain the fact that they are incremental tax bands, not absolute tax bands. That's important. You have another comment?
Sure. And so,
and let me just rephrase something I've said, because I've just now looked inside of my model, and we get more money from employee payroll taxes than employer. I have that backwards.
Okay, sure. No problem.
Go ahead. What do you got, Kellen?
And so I guess staying on the cost of living topic, given that we're in an economy here that has a heavy emphasis on international business, that obviously creates some skewness in workers' salaries. And so how would you, or what do you think is the path forward for more Bermudians to access higher salary bands, given that it'll always be difficult when you're in an environment that has a lot of skewness in it?
Well, I would say that I think this is a perfect example. You and others. I mean, that's the reality. The reality is that things don't manifest themselves overnight. The government has to continue making investments not only in education, but tertiary education. In this particular budget, we've increased the scholarship budget again. There's more funding that's going towards the Bermuda College. And the reality is more money that's going towards education, training, apprenticeships as well. That is the way in which you make sure that you retool people so they can access the jobs of the future and higher salary bands. So the reality is that from a Bermuda perspective, we have a continuing labor problem that is going to continue to be a labor crunch. Bermuda has never had enough Bermudians to fill the jobs inside of the country. And with our demographic challenges, we're going to have even less Bermudians to fill these jobs as we go forward. And so that means Bermudians do have the opportunity to pick, choose, or refuse where they do participate inside the workforce. But it's important that people take the opportunity and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented towards them to reskill, to upskill, to change, to modify, to get more skills so they can be ready for those jobs in the future.
Okay.
And just for your knowledge, the payroll tax changes of which were made on the employee side, assuming employer side, assuming no change to salaries on a year-to-year basis, cost about $17 million.
17 or 70?
17.
Gotcha. Okay. And again,
that's just on the employer side.
Gotcha.
On the employee side, the changes, assuming nothing else, were $11 million.
Gotcha. And do you, based upon that comment, do you want to give a brief explanation as to how this works? Because I could imagine that obviously you have all of these numbers, right? So you say the payroll tax, not the payroll tax, all the revenue is going to be X. And as you adjust, you have to go through a model to figure out what's going to be the impact.
The model's just up here on the computer. It's a very complex model that they built. Callum might want to look at it, but it's a very complex model. But we do have a model that we can use so we can estimate how much the taxes change.
So just the question is just asking, for example, in terms of you make a tweak to the payroll tax, it reduces payroll revenue by, say, I don't know, 50 million or 20 million.
Correct.
You have to understand what you're going to do to compensate for that.
Correct.
To make it's like a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. Next question was going to be around the talked about data rating, right? Healthcare. So we have the ongoing healthcare commentary
What's the healthcare commentary?
Well, one of the government initiatives is going to be to have universal health care.
Correct.
The budget says that we're going to have full exposure, full opportunity from this October.
Correct.
And at that point in time, everybody will have access to health care. That's correct also. And then, can you explain a little bit more about that? And then I know you have some questions about that or comments about it.
Well, I'm not the Minister of Health.
But
I can explain that I funded that, and
Yes.
that's what the Minister of Health says she will do with the money that we funded.
okay, so then, actually, correct.
I'm the Minister of Finance.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, clearly, though, you have an understanding of all these things. That's one of your
That would
gifts.
not be
but-
correct.
Okay, you're being
That would
polite.
not, no, I'm saying.
Maybe not in detail, but you understand
It
overall.
is important the way that persons understand the way that budgets are structured.
Yes.
We have a cabinet, we have ministers who make requests for money, we have ministers who have timelines and things which are set out. The minister has said that this will be able to be delivered with the funding of which she has given and the timelines of which it worked. And so that is the expectation. How it's going to happen, that I don't know. The Minister of Health will be the one to explain such.
Okay, well, that's quite interesting. So, you have a comment about that? About the healthcare change?
Well, then I guess we could look at the healthcare from the financial perspective. And so, like, right now, I feel like a couple reasons why healthcare is difficult in Bermuda is because, first of all, the healthcare itself, being its prescriptions or the treatment, etc., is expensive. We have an aging population, which creates more strain in the health system. And we also have decreasing health in the population, like health quality in the population. And so, in terms of implementing universal healthcare structure, what is the plan on reducing those underlying costs or underlying risk measures in order to offset the government's increased exposure to?
That'll be a question they'll be able to have to direct at the Minister of Health.
Okay.
That would not be for me.
Okay.
Okay, and so if you want to explain why you're asking that question.
So, I guess primarily, the first thing is, in terms of financing the universal healthcare scheme, thinking about it in terms of how much money you have to keep on hand, etc., in order to be prepared for whatever costs may occur, is a difficult thing. And seeing in the past how there's been off balances with the pension fund, etc., what sort of rules or what sort of guarantees we put in place in order to ensure that it's actually a stable, long-term, consistent?
Those are not questions I've even answered.
Not questions.
No,
Okay.
because but we have to understand the Minister of Finance's job is to assign the budgets and the funding, and ministers' jobs are to make sure that they deliver what we laid out in our election manifesto. So the specifics around healthcare reform, the specifics around all those things, those are not things that I would know. What I do know and understand is the view is to make sure that the core benefits package is applicable to everyone, and the core benefits package covers the basic benefits that people need to have access to preventative care inside of society, because the one thing you want to do is you want to have everyone have access to preventative care to make sure they don't have to then go to more acute care and more expensive care later. What I can say from the money of which we have funded and the specifics here inside is the challenges that present themselves acutely at the hospital are that we have hospital beds that are in the acute care setting which are not being used by acute care patients, and that is the reason why we are constructing an additional 30-bed step-down facility which will enable to relieve the pressure from the actual acute care wing at the hospital for those persons who are medically fit to discharge but have nowhere to go. They can then go to the step-down facility, which will cost much less, which will enable the people who actually need acute care to have there, which will reduce the pressure that people are seeing on the emergency room, because what happens in the emergency room, in addition to that, what the Minister of Health is also going to do is to expand services that are available at clinics so that there's less people that are just going to the emergency room because, I don't know, they stubbed their toe or something like that, because that is the worst place that you want to get your toe stubbed. So, or to get your toe stub treated. So from that perspective, that's what we're doing with the health funding that is established. The reality is that we did change the way that healthcare was funded in the country. In 2018, we went to block grant for the hospital, and therefore we need to make sure that we provide more funding for the hospital. The hospital is not on a fee-for-service model, and a fee-for-service model drove healthcare inflation in this country. And so, we had a place for the Bermuda hospitals where we're sitting on, hundreds of millions of dollars in surplus while, people's health insurance bills were going up and up and up and every year. Health insurance inflation has slowed dramatically from where it was previously, but we also want to make sure that we are providing good quality care while also investing in a changing demographic. So what you see inside this budget is significant money for expansion of the Sylvia Richardson Care Facility, the beginning of the construction of Leafroy House, and in addition to that 30-bed step-down facility, which is vital to relieve the pressure at the hospital, of which we are seeing, where, there's a whole bunch of people that are inside the ER because there's no rooms to admit them to upstairs, and then people get their surgeries canceled because if you leave from recovery, there's no room to admit you because you have persons who may be unwell but do not require acute care.
Right.
So they're medically fit to be discharged from an acute care setting, but there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah. And I think I'll add to that to say that
well, you know a little bit about that.
yeah, there's some bias because I was on the hospital board at the time when we made decisions, right? And that people, I think, generally don't understand that the acute care wing is actually designed just for that acute care. And so what's happening, as you said earlier, Callan, that many people now are becoming more and more sick, and so they are actually utilizing or populating the acute care piece inappropriately, and that's the problem. And so if the acute care wing treated only those that were acutely sick, we would have a better outcome. And so that's the challenge. And I'll smile at this because on the weekend, someone they were a little bit unwell, and their choice was to go to the urgent care center. And the conversation was, that's not what it's for. And it was like, back and forth in terms of, yes, it is, no, it's not. And so it is really us understanding what is the requirement for acute care or even the urgent care center as opposed to going to your normal GP and having to wait sometimes.
But the reality is that over the next few years, this is going to change dramatically because one of the things that is funded inside of this budget are, digital health initiatives, remote monitoring for persons who are medically fit for discharge, et cetera, so that, there could be early warning and different things insofar as if they have particular challenges. So there's a number of things that are going to evolve over the next few years as we get to use more and more of the use of technology and these inside of to help and to assist.
Gotcha. To listen audience again, thank you for joining us here on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday for another edition of Insight. Our guest this evening is the Premier Minister of Finance in his capacity as Minister of Finance to talk about the budget, the most recent 2026-27 budget. And we have a co-host this evening, Mr. Callan Richardson, who is a young entrant in the financial services sector, having just started employment in January as an actuarial analyst, and he is asking some questions that he had. To listen audience again, you can call in now, 297-1027. I was criticized, actually critiqued in a message that says, hey, why can't we call in? And so feel free to call in and ask your questions or send messages. The easiest way to do this is via WhatsApp on 538-8683, and I'll incorporate those questions as we go. Mr. Premier, going back a little minute to the corporate income tax, explain to the listening audience or restate it in terms of what the guidelines are to ensure that we don't overly rely on the corporate income tax.
I mean, it's kind of hard. We've laid out some fiscal rules. There's two fiscal rules. Number one, which says that the budget itself, the day-to-day spending in the budget, should the corporate income tax revenue should not be used to cover that. That's the main thing.
Sure.
And it says a corporate income tax revenue should only be used to cover debt interests or capital expenditure, and the day-to-day running of the government should be done with non-CIT revenue. Now, that's okay. I think in the near term. I think in the longer term, that's going to cause a problem. And as I said, in the future, there may be changes to the fiscal rules that people may make in the future.
Because that actually was one of my follow-up questions in terms of, yes, there are things that have been put in place. And you have said, you said it again on Friday, that you're not going to run for leader. And I smile and say that does not mean you may not continue as the Minister of Finance. However, what happens from a process point of view in terms of there being a new Minister of Finance that changes all of these rules that you've put in place or that are currently in place?
I mean, they can. We're trying to legislate some. But, we live in a parliamentary system, and unless you change the Constitution, legislation, anyone can, change rules at any point in time inside of a Westminster-based system. The reality is, however, that, there's different things that go around it because you have to then deal with, if you do make these law changes or you do make these changes to rules, how does that affect your credit rating? How does it affect other types of things, all the rest? So it's not that easy, but clearly it can be done. I mean, it's done in other countries all the time, so clearly it can be done. We're going to look to how much we can legislate, because it's a little bit more challenging to, change legislation than to change a rule.
Yes.
Even though you still have the ability to do such.
Gotcha. And I think to the listening audience, it's important to understand that you, as the current Minister of Finance, would not want to unduly tie the hands of a next person or next administration, for example, because it would not be quote unquote fair. There's got to be some flexibility.
Sometimes you want to tie hands.
But you want to have some flexibility, surely.
But flexibility exists inside the system of government because we're a democracy.
Yes. Okay.
And so, as I said, the only way that you can literally tie a hard and fast fiscal rule is by amending the Constitution.
Right.
Under the various provisions that are there. Outside of that, you can enact laws. But those laws, of course, can always be changed by a government.
Gotcha.
The government can go to Parliament and change the law.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so let's jump across now to this is a question which I think, well, I'll just ask the question, which is that this person says that they are disappointed that no funds were set aside in the budget to refurbish some of the rooms in the old wing of the hospital. The government has enhanced insurance benefits for HIP and future care, but not in
stop the person.
I know.
That is not correct.
I know, but I'll read the question to finish.
No problem.
The government has enhanced insurance benefits for HIP and future care, but not in GHI for government employees, which is government employees. So I guess the comment you're going to clarify there is that this person says that the government has not set aside funds to refurbish some of the rooms in the old hospital.
Not correct.
Gotcha. And then any comments in terms of the enhancements for HIP and future care, but not GHI?
I would say that GHI is a bigger challenge. This government is inside the budget. There's an additional $12 million to top up GHI, but GHI in and of itself is a massively underfunded program. And it's because the government does not kick retirees off of healthcare plans, such as many people in the private sector have kicked their retirees off of their healthcare plans. What we're trying to do, at least on a GHI basis, is at least make sure that from the perspective of where HIP and future care have at least a free annual exam without a copay, we want to make sure at least the same applies to GHI. There is additional money that has been put in for GHI, but it is not, I wouldn't compare GHI to HIP and future care when we're talking about the fact that in HIP you get like one doctor visit, whereas GHI you get multiple ones. Sure. They might not be paid for, whereas you have a prescription drug limit where in HIP and future care, whereas at GHI you don't. Right. Whereas you get major medical benefits and different things, where in future care and HIP you don't. Sure. So I don't think it's a fair comparison, but the reality is that it has been recognized that GHI is challenged, but that's going to be a longer term fix, and I think the better term fix with GHI will be when universal healthcare comes out. Those programs are rolled in.
Well, okay. Good evening, caller. Thank you for your patience. What's your question or comment?
Yep. Good evening, how are you? And citizens. As a question to the Premier, the budget he set last year for 2025 to 2026 this year, the $1 billion, $430 million budget last year until this year, is on par or because the budget year was usually can be also is from April 1st, 1 year, until March 31st the following year, right? Is that right?
You're asking, can the money from last year be rolled over to this year?
No, okay, no, I'm asking, last year budget was set in May.
Yes.
Was $1 billion, $430 million. The budget set last year for this year. From last year to this year.
Yes.
And he said my surplus the year before.
Okay. You got it. Thank you, caller.
That's all.
I'll let him comment. Thanks. Yeah. So his question was, last year we set the budget from at May because of the election, right?
Yes.
And came across, and it was 1.3 billion, I guess. And there was a surplus. Does it relate to this year or last year?
I mean, the surplus relates to last year.
But don't call him.
There was a surplus last year. I mean, there was a surplus the year before.
Yes.
Key point. So the first surplus was in fiscal year 24-25. That's one that ended in March of last year. Then we're expecting a surplus in this current fiscal year, which we're in. And I recognize the caller said, that we did the budget in May, but the budget basically goes for the whole year. So what we passed in May or June took effect from the 1st of April.
Important point.
We can't do that. So it lasted from the year of, April up until, even though it was passed later.
Sure.
And it was for the full year. And the other thing is we're expecting a budget surplus in the fiscal year that will start on the 1st of April.
Gotcha. Okay. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Insight. What's your question or comment?
Yes, good evening, Richardson and Premier Bart. How are you today?
Fine, thanks.
Good. Question, or just for clarity. You said that there was a payment that was due to be paid, and it was $5 million that needed to be paid, or is it the $605 million?
There was 500 million to be paid.
500 million.
Not to be paid, but was agreed or. Well, let the Premier answer, or the Minister of Finance answer.
Is that your only question, Miss?
Well, I just would. Well, okay. If that's the case, and you decided to pay the 105 million?
Yes.
So
okay.
Let me set this out. Let me set it out in this way because it's important to note.
Yes.
In January of 2027, the government must repay $605 million in debt.
Okay.
If we do not repay all $605 million in debt, we are going to have to borrow whatever we don't pay again or roll over that debt, like refinance it. And so the choices were to repay all of it, to repay some of it, or of course to repay none of it. Now that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Prior to us receiving the additional money from corporate income tax, we only thought that we would have enough to pay 500 million of it. However, we did get additional revenues in this particular year. We had estimated that we would get $187.5 million from corporate income tax. We ended up getting significantly more, $279 million. In addition to that, we got more money from the regular budget. So we had $110 million extra dollars that we'd had than we thought we would have when we did the pre-budget report in November. That is the reason why we are saying that we will then be able to pay the extra. But the reality is the government must repay $605 million in January. That is not optional. The question is whether or not we pay it all or we pay some of it. But we have to repay it.
All right, that's good. And well, great idea. I just wanted to make sure it was right in my head. And I think that's an excellent idea. So you'll get a star.
Thank you so much, Miss.
You're welcome, and have a great night.
Thank you. So before that caller called in, you were talking about the GHI. Any other further comments in terms of it's a full
GHI is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And so we'll look at the examination, but I accept the perspective. And as I said, what I told the unions is what I at least want to do is to make sure that everyone on GHI has at least a free annual exam in the exact same way that people on HIP and Future Care now have it without having to pay a copay.
Okay. And to those that do not have GHI, that's the government employees health insurance plan. It is a full service plan, and the Premier is making the distinction in terms of HIP and Future Care are more limited than GHI, and so again that's why he's giving the comparison. That is not. Those funds are not equal, those programs are not equal, and so he wants to make sure people understood that. Yeah. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Insight. What's your question or comment?
Is government, all government buildings have 00 ARV? Are they going to invest in LED lighting? Like save energy.
I got you.
For government buildings.
Okay.
Are they going to do that?
Okay.
Save energy, LED lighting, and saving electricity. That's all.
Okay.
That's have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, bye-bye. I guess it's just more generally about
most government buildings already have LED lighting. In addition to that, the budget does fund the placement of solar panels on additional government buildings to reduce our energy costs, and that is inside of this budget of this $182 million capital budget.
Gotcha. Then
very large capital budget.
1 second. The next question is, let me read it properly. It is, well, now that we're going into the healthcare, people are asking a question which is, good night. Would the government be helping us seniors to have cataract surgery through Future Care? Now we have to pay out of pocket. A lot of us can't afford it, but our eyes are important to us.
Well, I can't say that that is something that is on the cards, but I don't know. It may be, it may not be. I'm happy to, you can forward that message to the Minister of Health and then possibly get a response back for her.
Okay. The beauty of this is that the Premier is, I want to say, staying in his lane, not overstepping too far.
I don't know the answer to the question.
No, let me finish it, because I commend him because he knows so much about so many other things, but it's being polite and making sure that he stays in his lane tonight, so that's fine. The next question is, will the large homeless community, with the large homeless community, is there any thought to given to opening shelters in Bermuda where the unsheltered can go to clean up or get out of the elements?
The answer to the question is yes. There's a significant amount of money that is given towards homelessness initiatives inside this budget. It was mentioned under the minister who has responsibility, who is Minister Tanae Herbert. In addition to that, there's been significant amount of work that's happened between the government with Home, Salvation Army, etc., to make sure they provide additional facilities. But I think the most important thing to do is a broader issue when it comes to our housing and our housing affordability, and to ensure that we build additional houses. And so one of the things which I said inside the statement is that if we look at the amount of money that is going to housing inside of this budget by itself, as mentioned inside this budget, there's over $120 million worth of housing issues in this budget alone.
Gotcha.
And that is a $90 million guarantee of which I'm issuing to the Bermuda Housing Corporation to build precast housing. Because you look at Singapore. Singapore has one of the largest public housing programs on the planet.
Yes.
And all of their construction is done by precast. And they're able to build these massive buildings, massive skyscrapers, all the rest by precast construction projects to, enable them to build more quickly.
Sure.
And that's the exact same thing of which the Deputy Premier is making sure to advance here. And we're supporting that from a funding perspective. Because we do not have the capacity for housing in this country. The other thing that is very specific here, and I'm happy to read it,
sure,
because it's important to read, on this particular issue, speaking to the Acquisition of Land Act and dealing with the derelict and vacant properties that exist in the country. And so what this does state is that legislation and supporting measures are put in place to address vacant and derelict properties. And then it goes on to say restored or acquired properties will be directed towards first-time home ownership, social housing, and homelessness reduction pathways so that unused housing stock serves community needs, not for speculative investment by people who already have houses.
Sure. And I guess the question that would be, what's the process in terms of, there are many houses that are derelict that can be, can be refurbished. What's the process, though, in terms of getting them if they are, obviously earned privately?
That's what's spelled out here. Do you want me to read?
Yes, because I'm trying to understand how it would happen.
So we are advancing work to modernize the Acquisition of Land Act so it better equips the government acting through the Minister responsible for Public Works to address the growing number of derelict and abandoned properties surrounding the island. The policy aim is straightforward to ensure that properties left vacant for years can be returned to productive and socially beneficial use, supporting housing availability, community renewal, and economic activity, while fully respecting constitutional safeguards, fair compensation, and transparent administrative process. This includes establishing a national framework for identifying, certifying, and managing derelict properties through coordinated action throughout government.
Okay. And so I guess the concern that you're resolving would be you're not going to just take them. It'll be a matter of the proper compensation and all the rest of it.
Property.
Yeah.
The Constitution doesn't allow you to take someone's property. The Constitution requires fair compensation, and it basically sets out. There's a number of things. I can continue reading it if you wish.
Well, I mean,
it's important.
Sorry, no, I think it's important because sometimes when we say things, people take it the wrong way, I guess.
People say things wrong.
So it's not going to be government taking house. It's going to be more about government recognizing.
I'll read the entire section.
Sure.
It's fine. It goes on to say the same thing I said. Legislation supporting policy measure put in place to address vacant and derelict properties. Restored or acquired properties will direct towards first-time home ownership, social housing, and homelessness reduction pathways so that unused housing stock serves community needs. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge the use of compulsory acquisition powers in limited housing cases is not without historical sensitivity.
Yes.
Home ownership, family land, and proper retention are deeply important to Bermudian families, especially Black Bermudian families, and this government respects that history and the priority. Any such powers will be applied narrowly, transparently, and only where properties remain derelict or abandoned for extended periods and owners have not engaged despite repeated opportunities and support to bring those homes back to use. The objective is not to take family property, but to prevent long-term blight, restore housing stock, and return neglecting properties to productive community benefit.
Okay.
Taking together, these measures about restoring balance to a housing system that is not functioning as it should and ensuring that land and buildings in Bermuda are working for the people of this country, not sitting idle while families struggle to find a place to live.
Gotcha. Okay. And good. I mean, I guess we're emphasizing the obvious in terms of government intends a balanced approach to ensure that these houses can be brought back to being habitable, which obviously is a very practical thing to do. Okay. So another question is coming in. Well, again about housing. Before I take this question, though, can you give us an estimate in terms of, and again, it may be something to defer about, an estimate in terms of the time frame that we'll see these new precast models of homes becoming available? Is it like within a year, or how long would it take to go through the process that you're estimating based upon the Minister of Housing?
The Minister of Housing is expecting housing delivery to go quickly. I will look to see what the text says.
Sure. I mean, and I'll just read this comment. I mean, I'll read it because it's obvious in terms of, the question is, are you aware of a dire housing crisis? The answer is yes. Everyone in Bermuda knows that there's a dire housing crisis.
Well, I know that, yes.
Yeah. And I guess
there's a reason why we've put the most amount of money towards housing ever in a budget.
And I guess I'll ask this question also.
In a budget.
Understood. It comes up very often in the public discussion, right? And that is the Bermudiana up on South Road there. And this question is, government has empty dwellings at Bermudiana. Why can't at least one block be used to elevate the urgent housing, or alleviate, I guess, the urgent housing crisis? I know from before, but I'll allow you to comment on that. Why we would not necessarily use Bermudiana for the
That would not be correct, because Bermudiana is being used in housing in certain cases and instances. So the person would be misinformed in what they are stating. But I will go ahead and read what the budget says around housing. It says, Mr. Speaker, this budget also focuses on fixing practical blockages that keeps homes off the market and places housing out of reach for far too many Bermudians. As part of our long-term commitment set out in the 2025 platform, the government has begun structured exploration of options for the future of the former Bermuda Beach Resort and Grand Atlantic site, with a clear objective of returning this public asset to productive housing use for Bermudians over time.
Okay, so clearly, I mean, obviously I want to make sure I remain as neutral as I can, but the government, in terms of even having a Minister for Housing, is demonstrating the fact that there is a lot of attention being put, and we all know that Prime Minister Zain is one of the most energetic persons that we know, certainly in the political arena, and he will, do all he can to get the job done. And so, I guess on your behalf, we certainly endorse the fact that the government is well aware of what's happening in terms of the need for housing. I guess now I'll ask the question more at a macro level, and that is that there is, in Bermuda, there is the potential for us to continue on with an over-dependence on international business in the context of the economy. And so, do you have a comment in terms of the risk that currently exists, rather, in terms of the heavy emphasis on the international sector? How can we diversify? What's your thought about that?
This is a question about diversification. This is a question of knowing and understanding where we are and what it is that we do and do well, and make sure that we continue to do it well. Financial services has been a mainstay in many, many, many places around the world.
Yep.
And financial services will continue to be a mainstay in many places around the world, including Bermuda. Our job is to make sure that we remain competitive and continue to build the better mousetrap to continue to attract financial services companies to Bermuda and diversify financial services. People talk about diversification as though if it's something that can just happen. It's just, I remember talking about this particular matter when I was in the United Arab Emirates, and someone had posed the same question. I'm like, we're not going to become a manufacturing place,
right? Because
we don't have cheap electricity and we don't have land to manufacture. So you have to be realistic about what you can diversify in. we can diversify our financial services offering. We can continue to make sure that we can invest in tourism, to make sure that we continue to attract foreign currency earnings through tourism. But those are the places where we're limited. And so we need to make sure we're better in the places where we do. I mean, the only other place that we're going to do is, develop a deep sea industry, deep sea fishing industry. But, that's about it.
Right. Okay.
We don't have a lot of other options. That's the reality, and we have to face it. We don't have a lot of options. You're not going to have light manufacturing here because it's just not cost effective.
Yes. And I think comments like that are important because very often, in my personal opinion, in the public arena, people say stuff and there is no proper explanation or response to it. And so that's again, a very valid comment in terms of there is diversity within a sector. And as you're saying, one idea would be to make sure that we are more diverse in our financial services offerings. And I do know that there are things that are happening differently to make it.
You don't have to just do insurance. You need to broaden asset management. That's the reason why we're pressing ahead on digital finance. There's other things to do. The financial services. Are we concentrated in insurance? Yes, we are. But we also have a wide number of other things. And so with the addition of shipping companies that are coming to Bermuda and others, we're broadening our international business landscape.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, caller. I'm sorry. Good evening, caller. Thank you for your patience. What's your question or comment?
No problem. Good evening, Mr. Richardson and the Premier and the young Richardson. I'm enjoying your program.
Thank you.
Mr. Premier, congratulations on your final budget. I have a couple of questions, if I may. I stand to be corrected. Swing Bridge. I think you will be building a new bridge for Swing Bridge. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Has any consideration been thought about the Longbird Bridge? Because that baby bridge is going over its existence over 20-odd years. And that is a vital bridge for Bermuda, period, getting to the airport and coming from the East End. That's one question.
The answer to your question is yes.
Yeah. The other one, another question was the retired public service servant. Yeah, get a Tampa. The other one, pension boost. I was reading in the paper, I got it here, it says that was stopped in 2014. How is that going to be really worked out? How do you reckon? It's a 10% raise one time, but how is that worked out for the retired public servants? And I'll listen off here for that, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, caller.
On the matter related to the bridge, Longbird Bridge and Swing Bridge, it was a judge that we would not do both at the same time. And that we would do Swing Bridge and replace the Bailey Bridge at Longbird Bridge, and then deal with the replacement of Longbird Bridge afterwards. And the reason why that was done is just purely because we have a number of various capital projects which we have to do, in other schools, other to new senior cell facilities, etc. And so Swing Bridge is the one that is more urgent because we can Bailey or re-Bailey what's at Longbird Bridge, and I think that is the plan for now until we do a full replacement of Longbird Bridge in the future. In regards to public sector retirees, the budget did indicate that we would give a 10% one-time pension increase to public sector retirees. The reason why this has come into place is because they were frozen since 2014. I had made it clear that we are not able to reinstate semi-annual or biannual, whichever one it is, every 2 years pension increases, that we're not going to be able to reinstitute those. But I did give a commitment to retired public servants that after we fix the pension fund, the public service superannuation fund, which we have done by making the changes that we made last year, that there is going to be space and capacity to give a one-time increase. In the future, the law states that after every actuarial review, which is every 3 years, the minister will recommend to the board, the minister and the board will discuss how they're going to increase the rates. That is the approach of which we take to the increase. What we want to make sure is that the fund itself remains funded.
So to summarize, you're going to give a 10% to start with, and then every 3 years consider
every 3 years after the actual,
not do them, but
after the
them.
actuarial review.
Yes.
So the next actuarial review is actually due this year. So the law states after each actuarial review, so it can be reviewed at that time as well.
Okay, fair enough. Do you want to give a general comment about the overall pension reform? Because there's lots of... I know the act was changed last year.
The public sector superannuation fund.
Yes.
That law was done, yes.
Right, but recently there's been lots of commentary about that. And so do you want to give a comment?
What
In terms
commentary?
in terms of the unintended consequence, I would say, in that many civil servants may
You're
consider...
talking about uninformed commentary by the supposed lecturer at the Bermuda College. I'm not going to address that because it is false. We tried to work with him and explain to him, and he just still writes what he wants to write. So I'm not going to reply to that at all. It is false.
So it is well, let me think. Are you able to give a quick summary of what the changes are?
I can. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Sure.
I mean, that was done last year. The retirement ages will gradually increase. The age at which persons can get things will gradually increase. The lump sum commutation has been changed from a fixed rate to something that is decided after each actual review. The contributions have increased because that's what you have to do. That's about it.
Okay, fair enough. And I take the point, obviously, this program is never about trying to quote-unquote got you. It's more question, just actually
No,
that's the question.
it's just unfortunate because on that particular case and instance, I'm sorry, I'm not running again. So I'm just going to let it go. The guy did not follow the advice. He wrote an article. The article was sent to us by the Royal Gazette. We said this is full of factual inaccuracies.
Okay.
We went to him and said it was full of factual inaccuracies. We said we do not want to get into a space where we're going to tell a professor of economics at the Bermuda College who's publishing a piece that what you're writing is incorrect because you're supposed to be educating our children.
Wow. Okay.
So clearly we want to get this right, and he still published a piece anyways.
Okay.
With his factual inaccuracies inside of it. Okay. And then the same person published a speech last week which said the things of which we're expecting in the budget, which were all the things were in the budget last year.
Okay. And I must confess, I interviewed him. I didn't read it, but anyway, I'll leave it alone.
Please, thank you.
Dr. Anand, okay. So different question altogether now. It's more of a macro one in that obviously Bermuda has the rent control legislation. And I was just, I guess, personally surprised to note that more than half the houses in Bermuda are under rent control, which has been stated many, many times. And I was a bit, again, surprised in terms of that means that government actually has levers on accommodation on more than half the properties that are available for rent. And is there a comment in terms of trying to reduce that, or is that appropriate? Is that normal, or is that natural? Or?
I would be the minister who has responsibility for that. I'm not going to trample on her views. That would be Minister Lightbourne.
Okay, after the interview, because that was, to be honest, that's a surprise to me in terms of the on a national level that more than half the houses are quote unquote I guess impacted by the government in terms of the amounts that can be charged for rent. That was done. So sticking with this macro theme, I want to call it. There is. Oh, sorry. Did you have any questions or comments you want to add, Callum? Different areas. Just let me know. So I don't want to run out of time.
No, not regarding housing. I don't think.
Ask away.
Well, anything I'm talking about.
Go ahead. I'll ask on the next.
Okay. This is going to put you. It's a political question. It's a political question.
Oh boy.
But no, it's fine. It's twofold. One is that once you, as the Minister of Finance, announce the budget, there's lots of commentary, and some of it is not objective commentary. And the comments I received is that the media itself is biased against whatever you decide to do. And number two is that within the overall political sphere, there doesn't appear to be effective commentary that's constructive around the budget process. And so we'll see the opposition replied on Friday. But what comments do you have in terms of how do you make sure that you are quote unquote doing a good job when there isn't really the objective commentary around of what's taking place?
I mean, objective, non-objective. I think there's enough objective commentary. I think that in a world where there's social media and other things, people can say whatever they want.
Yes.
And a lot of it is uninformed and misinformed. And so I don't try to get caught up on that too much because and that's been the way I think that I've been able to be actually successful politically For a lot, I don't get caught up on the noise. You have to focus on your agenda and execute your agenda. You were elected for something, and I always remind people, I did not get 100% of the votes on election day. I'm not expecting 100% support with what we do.
Okay.
Our job is to deliver on the agenda that we were elected on, and people are going to make noise. I'll use a word that doesn't exist, irregardless. Okay? I'm just saying, they're going to make words, they're going to say something. It doesn't matter. And so from that perspective, we just have to press ahead with our agenda. We have an election platform that we're elected on, and we press ahead on that agenda.
Okay. And to the listening audience, that's not the first time I've heard that comment from the premier, from, as I say, in a different space, and that's always been the emphasis in terms of you have the election is based upon an election manifesto or a platform, and then your job is to execute that. You make some modifications, but you execute that, and that's what that's the ultimate measure, and that's what you do.
And I expect the opposition to say no, and I expect people who don't support the Progressive Labor Party to say, "Oh, I don't agree with that." Okay, that's fine, but we were elected to deliver on this. Please note, this budget, just like the one that we did in May, funds all the stuff that was an election manifesto that won the Progressive Labor Party 25 out of 36 seats in the House of Assembly.
Yes.
We are carrying out our agenda.
Gotcha. And again, also one more time, but listen, audience, that's the mandate, and so let's leave that alone. Next comment is, and it goes back to what you said earlier, but the comment is that Bermuda is moving more and more to I guess a digital economy, or is digitizing itself, which is leaving some people behind. What happens to persons
Even beyond.
whether persons, whether they be older or middle-aged, even students now, is not able to get a firm grounding, the jobs themselves are moving away from them. And so what comments do you have about that? I know you made a comment about it earlier, but what other comments would you have in terms of what do you see as, well, first of all, do you agree with that? And secondarily, if you do agree with it, would be a matter of what are you doing to ensure that all persons can be aware and grow with the digitized economy?
So, what I will say is that you can't hold back progress. And so, I'm sorry. I mean, my mom uses WhatsApp. But this is the reality. Yes. We're going to be in a place in a few years, probably even this year, where you'll be able to, and this is one of the things I did at the World Economic Forum, because I went to the World Economic Forum, we now have in touch with our business officer at Meta, because there are now apps which are being, or government services which should be delivered through WhatsApp, where you can just send a WhatsApp and then you get a response and it goes through the LM and an AI thing and then it fixes it. You understand what I'm saying? So there's ways to make it easier. What I'm saying is that I do not like to get into this space of saying a digital divide because we cannot hold back the pace of technology. We have to make sure that we bring people along. So when you talk about, whether it's seniors, whether it's other persons, it is one of the things that are here even inside the budget when we're talking about workforce development. If I even go underneath the workforce, the Ministry of Economy and Labor, where it literally says, specifically in Department of Workforce Development, specifically these funds will strengthen local and overseas apprenticeship training, improve workforce readiness, and expand digital literacy initiatives for sectors such as construction, hospitality, and digital finance. The reality is that we give a whole lot of money and we put on a number of programs for seniors in the community to be able to be more digitally aware and all the rest. We do provide those additional services, even the thing in which we're doing for land tax right now. We do still allow people to go into the office, social insurance, which is online. We still allow people to go into the office. But the people who go into the office are shown how to use the online systems because most persons, Bermuda is the most digitally connected place on the planet.
Is it?
Yes. Wow. We've been that way for a long time. Okay. We're the only country in the world that boasts the ability to run fiber to every single home directly, including the homes in the Sound. We're the most digitally connected place on the planet. We have the fastest mobile network on the planet.
Well, and that's interesting because
So we have to continue to lean into it, and it cannot be the space and excuse that, some people can't.
Right.
No, that is our job to make sure we provide the funding, the resources, and other things to make sure they get educated. But remember, this is the same government that provides free training for anyone who wants to learn digital finance skills online.
And so that's interesting because one of the comments was, has there been any consideration, given that we are a connected world, and in Bermuda, for whatever reason, the internet and the rest of it is quite expensive. Has there been any thought around trying to, whether it be subsidized or provide free connectivity to every house in Bermuda? Or does it might qualify?
There hasn't been, and that would not be on. But I think what you've seen with the work of the Minister of Home Affairs has done is we've seen internet rates come down and we've seen phone rates come down.
Okay, fair enough. And I guess that's part of the objective in terms of...
Which is not something that people will talk about, but we have seen phone rates and internet rates go down.
Gotcha, okay. All right, and then the next one, that's that one.
And when I say go down, they've introduced new lower cost plans.
Yeah.
Whereas before there were not plans that were, they've introduced new lower cost plans that people can take advantage of, both residential internet and mobile phone.
Gotcha. Yeah, lots of comments about that. I know that, about the idea of plans, how much they cost and what have you.
Not really regarding to a macro viewpoint as the government. I guess more on a personal note, I did spend some time looking to see what the new options were and if there was some capability to bundle on the island, which I've not been able to find as easily as I would have thought, like to be able to combine mobile plans with your home Wi-Fi and everything in just one monthly payment. But
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so Mr. Premier, next one is Belco. The plan or the current budget initiative is to reduce the import cost, the taxes, the customs duty on imports for Belco. And you have a good comment in terms of the ability or why not make it more targeted whereby low income, quote unquote, are able to benefit rather than the company itself?
Don't say that, Anthony. You know full well the company does not benefit.
Okay, sorry, you're getting tight. Let's rephrase that in terms of the process.
The fuel tax does not apply to the company at all.
Correct.
It is direct pass-through on the bill.
Right, and so you're making me smile now.
But you know that.
You're making me smile. So is there a regime to make sure that it gets through?
Yes, it is a direct pass-through on the bill. This is not anything that goes to Belco.
Okay.
Belco pays the tax, and the tax is put on your bill.
Right.
If there is no tax, it is not put on your bill. It is direct pass-through.
Okay. Good.
As all the other reductions of which we've had have immediately reduced the bills that have been paid, and the average customer will pay $375 less a year in their electricity bills, because that's how much taxes each and every average customer is paying on their taxes. Taxes, by the way, which were doubled by the former government.
Yeah. So let me smile and make it easier now, Mr. Premier. We've been going on for quite a while now. So let's talk about cost of living. Obviously, that impacts everybody, and there are lots of initiatives now in terms of reducing the cost of the goods in terms of the customs duty. So talk about that in terms of how it's going to benefit. And I know a lot of it goes to Minister Lightbourne in terms of her having direct responsibility, but within the budget, there are some reductions in the import duties, correct, on the foodstuffs and other items?
Significant reductions on import
that's
duties. Good. So what's the questions, if you want to run through them?
Yes, please.
Absolutely happy to do so.
It's again. I want to not end it, but I want to go on a little bit easier.
No, it's fine. I was just, I'm traveling tomorrow, and someone had just sent me a message around travel because you're trying to make me nervous.
In New York's problem. If you're going to Connecticut, you're fine.
You're trying to make me nervous.
You're a pilot, so flying is not an issue for you.
I don't fly the plane, Anthony. You're trying to make me nervous. All right, well, let's talk about the other reductions inside the budgets. And I would like to read. Pretend like I'm reading in the Parliament. I had fun reading in Parliament. I like to read budget speeches. It says, Mr. Speaker, relief this budget does not end with payroll tax reductions. The government has reduced the tax burden for working families time and time again, and this budget continues this work. Lower electricity costs. The government will eliminate the final 4 cents per liter of customs duty on fuel for electricity generation, resulting in lower energy costs for homes and businesses. This reduction will mean that over the past 2 years, this PLP government has eliminated the taxes on fuel for electricity generation, saving the average household $375 a year.
Okay.
Moving on to essential goods. To support the Affordable Bermuda agenda, spearheaded by the Honorable Member, the Minister for Home Affairs, this government will reduce or eliminate duty rates on a wide range of essential goods. These include everyday household hygiene and cleaning products, infant nutrition and care items, core dairy products, bakery goods, grains, pantry staples, selected meats, deli meats as well, and fresh produce. These are the basics that families purchase week after week, and this measure is designed to ease pressure at the checkout counter and make a practical difference in the cost of living for Bermudan households. Moving on to vehicle licensing. Mr. Speaker, this government will keep its commitment to reduce private car licensing fees by a further 10% effective the 1st of April. And then further customs duty changes, the further adjustments we made, recent changes to reduce or eliminate duty on all motor vehicle parts and building supplies, unintentionally missed some tariff codes. Those missing tariff codes will be added. And then following representations from florists in Bermuda and to support our hospitality sector, duty charge on imported fresh flowers will be reduced from 25% to 5%.
Okay.
So yes, deli meats, produce, fresh produce, dairy, all the rest, duty cuts all around.
Okay, good.
Duty cuts also for like cleaning supplies and different things, because like detergents and stuff, they're charged.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah, because they're charged a heavy rate of duty, they're being reduced.
Okay. You got a comment, Kyle?
Yeah, so with the focus on reducing duty for essential goods, like that's, in my mind, it's only a lever you can pull so many times before you've completely reduced your duty on those types of goods and services that are quote unquote mandatory. So I guess beyond that, as you see those duty rates get closer to zero on like a overall basis, what's the plan after that for further relief?
Well, I'm not sure there's a plan after that for further relief. The reality is that the only things that you can control are the taxes of which you put on things. And so if you're taxing something, you're making it more expensive. So you want to make sure that you eliminate the taxes so you don't make them more expensive.
Yep, correct. I agree. But like, so in terms of no ideas for policies or et cetera that might help to overall, I mean, I obviously recognize that since we're in Bermuda and we import everything, almost everything, we don't have as much control over supply chains, et cetera, here. But are there any policies or steps taken or any ideas along those lines of trying to reduce those?
I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, the Minister of Home Affairs put out a large Affordable Bermuda agenda. As the Minister of Finance, my portion of that was to make sure I reduce the taxes. Okay. And so we're delivering that from a food supply, from the other things, insofar as domestic food supply. There's other things in the budget about reducing taxes on food producers and farmers and fees and different things like that. So, I mean, but remember, the agenda in itself is broad. For the Minister of Finance, I deal with the taxes because that's the portion of which I know are increasing the cost. So if an importer has to pay a tax on something, if you reduce the tax, then that cost to the employer is less. Now, whether or not those things are passed on is a different issue, one that the Minister of Health, not the Minister of Health, the Minister of Affairs continues to work on with it. And she was able to unveil an Affordable Bermuda basket, which had a 20% reduction on certain things. And our job is to make sure we support the people on that. And so the Affordable Bermuda Agenda report said that we have to also reduce taxes. So that's what we're doing as well.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, but from a broad level, there's a number of things inside of there.
Yeah.
But from a competition basis, there's also the perspective where you have to be realistic. We are a small country.
Yes.
We do not have a whole lot of purchasing power or control. We import everything, and we are at the mercy of global fuel prices, global shipping price, etc. But when you look at the things insofar as what the minister has laid out in our election manifesto, and the things which the minister has laid out in the Affordable Bermuda agenda, talking about the people who control essential supplies, not necessarily domestically, but the entire supply chain. Like, are we being overcharged for shipping? Yes or no? because those things factor into how much the end rates cost as well. So my job as Minister of Finance is to reduce the taxes as much as possible on the entire supply chain.
Okay.
And that leads to a comment I was going to make in terms of competition within the local scene, I want to call it. Do you have any comments in terms of the increase in competition? Like right now, we have the retail stores, we have the wholesalers, we have the bulk store supplies. Do you have any overall comments in terms of what the government can do or should do or is doing in terms of
we
increasing
should make
competition?
sure that we facilitate a market that works well.
Gotcha. So competition.
Yeah, we should facilitate a market that works well, and we need to finish off our digital price tracker, which is overdue to be launched.
And that's the one whereby you
can see how much the essential goods are being charged on various stores in the country. So you can compare yourself.
So at least you have
price discovery will help promote competition. That's a basic fact of economics.
Sure, okay.
Yes, Callum knows. They taught it at St. John's.
I actually took economics at Bermuda College.
There he goes.
During his dual Roman days. Okay, so now this is, well, I asked the question. So in terms of the actual food supply, we obviously get most of it from North America. There's lots of discussion, some discussion in terms of getting it from down south instead, which in my mind ties to CARICOM. So do you have any comment in terms of that overall process in that would the CARICOM Association assist in new markets, or is it just a matter of Bermuda being prepared to allow goods to come from other markets?
It all depends what the final formulation of CARICOM may or may not be. It all depends on where we end up. The CSME, which is the CARICOM Single Market Economy, does require a certain tariff treatment in trade between countries, and that could be, but there's nothing that's preventing inter-Caribbean trade from coming to Bermuda right now. At issue, of course, is how these things get here, Sure. And it's a question of direct trade links and other things, and those are matters which are being worked on by ministers. We've seen, surprisingly helpfully, from the UK government, because they're trying to boost their exports as well and boost their trade items. And of course, we're being lobbied by Canada, so I know the Minister of Economy and Labor is doing a trade mission in Nova Scotia as well. So we have to continue to work on diversifying, but I don't want people to think. Here's the unfortunate reality. We are an island with 700 miles from our closest place. We're only 65,000 people. We do not have significant purchasing power. And yes, things are expensive. So we have to do our job on the legislative side to make sure that people have as much money in their pocket as possible, to make sure that we're doing things on that side, and to make sure they're paying as little taxes as possible. So say, for instance, someone who now is paying a certain amount of taxes, if they're able to, this year they save $840, next year if they can save another $840, you understand what I'm saying? That can make a benefit to them to at least have more money in their pockets to survive.
Okay. You have any question about different supply?
Because that's how you affect people's quality of life.
Yes, clearly.
You either let them keep more money in their pocket, take less money away from them so they have more money to spend themselves.
Yeah. And that's a conversation too, which I haven't had on the show yet, in terms of there is a reality to financial freedom, and it doesn't mean having a whole pile of money, but at least having a sense as to I have enough to cover what I need. And you have to obviously make some adjustments to your lifestyle, but that's an important conversation to hear, which I'll have at another point in time. A question came in that you already answered, though, in terms of the food tracker app. Someone was asking what's the status of that.
Trust me, I need to find out, because I'm going to send an email right now, because it's well overdue.
Gotcha. I'll smile at the answers that you might get. With the lower duty on staples, what measures are in place to prevent grocery stores from increasing their prices and gaining more profit? I think that's, again, it comes under Minister Lightbourne in terms of the Cost of Living Commission has the authority to check that reductions are passed through?
Correct, they do. And she has a very active Cost of Living Commission, and we still also have a price gouging report form, which is online.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we've had it since the pandemic.
Okay.
You can go on online services at gov.bm and find out all the online services. There's over 100 online services that are offered by the Bermuda government. Over 100.
Sounds like a promo. Okay.
It's the fact.
And
I was the Minister for Digitization for a little.
Oh, yes. And so go to online services, gov.bm?
Yes, we have over 100 online services.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the person who's asked that question, You can go online, and not being facetious about this, you can go online and find some of the answers to these things, myself included,
Yes.
by looking at the online services that are offered by government.
Yes, you can also go to costofliving.gov.bm to look at the entire Afford Bermuda agenda, because the Minister of Home Affairs has done a significant amount of work.
Gotcha. I do stand testament to that. So, okay. I'm just checking to get the other questions in. To the listening audience, it happens sometimes. You can call in now if you choose on 297-1027 to get your questions. The guest this evening is the Honorable Premier in his capacity as Minister of Finance, and Young Callan as a new entrant in the financial services sector, who is learning the ropes, as it were.
He's only working for one of the best countries and the best companies in the planet. So,
Well,
it's all right.
It's relative, I suppose.
We like orange.
This question, would you ask the minister what is his legacy in the budget as it relates to education reform?
What is the legacy in the budget is the education reform?
Yeah.
So let's talk about education.
Sure.
I will. I continue to be offended in the way that people talk about public education. Recognize that I have two children inside the public education system who are having an incredibly amazing experience.
I declare my
and
interest.
most of the students are having an incredibly amazing experience.
Yes.
When I hear about the challenges in public education, I wonder if people have ever been to a private school and wonder if kids don't fight there too.
Oh, dear.
No, I'm being honest.
No, I'm saying, listen, I declare my interest. My wife's a school principal.
Your wife is my son's principal.
Yes, true.
That is correct. And so, from that perspective, but let's talk about the fact that there are challenges whenever you try to reform and change the system. What we've done in this budget is we've made sure that we provided additional resources to the Minister of Education. Education's gotten a $7 million funding boost on the current account side, and they've gotten a 73% increase on their capital account side. One of the things the minister was lamenting was the fact that there was all the money that was going to the new and signature schools and all the rest, and what about the schools that were continuing to exist, et cetera? All the rest weren't getting their investment, and so that has been changed. There's a significant amount of money. She's laid out a very ambitious capital plan, technology upgrades, et cetera, equipment upgrades, different things like that. So she's pressing ahead. And so from that perspective, we have significantly increased education funding every single year since I've been in office. We increased the money that teachers were paid, and that was very early on to make sure they were more competitive. And we're going to continue to invest in education. And what I did say inside the budget is that we're going to bring forward a full capital plan that is going to be funded. We have the money to fund it. We know we're going to have to build new schools. We know that. We know that. I mean, your wife's former school, Prospect, was the only school that was built after World War II.
Okay.
Every other school was built before World War II.
Gotcha.
Our schools are old.
Yes.
These buildings are old. Excluding Bark and Cedar Ridge, of course.
Right.
But you understand what I'm saying. These buildings are old, and so they are going to have to be rebuilt. The reality is they are going to have to be redone, and so we're going to go through that particular process.
Okay. Well, that's quite interesting. And, I'll say this.
They're old. You're going to have to rebuild them at some point in time.
Right. No, but I'm saying, for me, it's interesting because, obviously I do my best to stay aware of what's taking place, but sometimes the way you explain things, it is helpful to realize that it is even more positive than I thought. Because I personally, as people know, I'm offended by the idea that people say public education is less than because, I'm a product, my wife's a school principal, my children went to 9 yards.
Yeah, look at Callan.
And I mean, his one example. But
I'm just saying, look at Callan. How old were you when you graduated St. John's?
I was 19, I guess.
Hey, look at that. 19, working. I'm telling you. And then, I'm saying, dual enrollment, public education, right here. So the reality is, and that's the same experience. Now, we recognize there are challenges, but that is the reason why we put significant funding in. That is the reason why we're using digital tools. For instance, we rolled out a mirror learning to help to boost reading using artificial intelligence tools. We got this because we're sharing knowledge of what they're doing in the Caribbean and CARICOM. I had a meeting with the Minister of Education of Jamaica when I was in the United Arab Emirates, put her in touch with Crystal because it's amazing because they're doing stuff to assist teachers insofar as lesson planning, using artificial intelligence and marking grades and all the rest to reduce the stress over teachers. So there's a lot of things of which we're doing, and we're making sure that we put that investment in technology to support the teachers, etc. And so if someone is asking the legacy from a budget on an education perspective, I say that we have increased funding for education significantly. We're continuing to increase funding for education significantly. We are going to make sure that we bring forward, as stated inside this budget, a full capital plan for education that is going to be funded, because we are going to have to upgrade and modernize schools. But the other portion of this is that we recognize that education is going to go through serious, fundamental, and transformational change over the next 5 to 10 years. And that has nothing to do with the education reform or transformation that is happening. That is just how education is going to be delivered, these increase in technology, and the fact that individualized learning is going to be able to be deployed much easier, much simpler, to ensure that all students have the ability to learn. The places where we've seen these individualized learnings happen already, student attainment has increased significantly. And that is the types of things of which we are making sure that we bring towards our students.
Well, and again, and I'll obviously invite the minister to come on board and talk about that, because even the I want to say the simplistic explanation that yes, we were focusing so much on the new schools and signature schools getting those things done, but yes, the existing continuing schools also need funding. And you just said there is a plan to fund those things. And what's even more exciting to me, I did not know until you just said this, in terms of there's a push for technology to improve individualized learning. That's brilliant.
Yeah, but we've already deployed it.
Again,
it's already been deployed.
My children, I would know that.
I know, but it's called a mirror learning. Ask Dr. Richardson.
Yes.
She'll tell you. It's called a mirror learning, which is a reading platform where we're starting to deploy these individualized stuff. And so that's what we're doing.
And clearly that means that if Anthony, I'm a student now, you are better able to match my personal needs as opposed to the broad needs. So obviously I will respond.
We've already had that, but I guess I'm saying that these are the types of things that are able to be now delivered through artificial intelligence, gamification, so people are continuing to be involved, students are continuing to be involved, but rather than, one teacher tried to teach 12 different people who might be different levels, now there's one program that can teach 12 kids at the same time and can focus and understand that this child has a problem reading these particular things, and it will continue to give it back to them and give it back to them and give it back to them once they get it.
Okay.
It's that type of stuff. Whereas the kid next to him might be, might be fine on, CH, but may have a problem figuring out SH. It continues to, it's that type of stuff. And so we have seen the increases in numeracy and literacy that there's been a big focus on.
Yes.
And we know that from the schools, the principals are sharing the strategies which are working. And so we've also re-implemented and refunded the Gifted and Talented program. And so the reality is that we are making sure there's more investment in matters related to education.
Well, okay, fair enough. All right, now we're getting close to the hour, Mr. Premier. I know that tomorrow you have your budget breakfast.
I have a 100th birthday celebration for one of my favorite constituents. I have 16 ministers that are visiting my office. I have a budget press conference, and I have to get on a plane.
Wow.
And I still have to go home and pack. So yeah, it's a lot.
Well, packing's easy. That's very.
And packing is not easy. It's never easy for me. It's a challenge. Never easy.
I was smart at that. It should be easy because anyway. So I'll take the time to give you some comments. Not comments. I would give you an opportunity to restate anything that you think has not been necessarily addressed or that's not been factored. You want to restate to the listening audience, again, on the basis that the listening audience may not have been listening to what's been taking place from Friday to now. That may be, that highlights. I mean, we talked already in terms of what I think is important is the reduction in payroll tax. That's very important because it impacts everybody. There is the reduction, for example, in my car license. When I get my car license again, that's going to be important. So what other things would you want to highlight before we close off for this evening and allow you to go home and do what you got to get done in preparation for tomorrow?
So what I would say is, Anthony, is that this budget is one that is in line with the core ethos of the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party. It is one that reduces the tax burden on workers. It's one that reduces the tax burden on businesses. It's the one that makes sure that we provide additional services, makes a massive and significant investment in healthcare, a significant investment in the country's infrastructure, whether that be and a significant investment in housing as well. We are in this place because we've been able to make disciplined decisions over the last 9 years. It's important to remember that we delivered a budget surplus in this country before a single dime of corporate income tax was collected. I need to repeat that because there'll be people who say, oh, the only reason why we have a budget surplus is because we have corporate income tax. False.
Gotcha.
False. The only reason we're able to pay off $605 million of debt is due to corporate income tax. But the reason why we have a budget surplus is because we have worked hard to make sure that we, number one, grow this economy, number two, keep a handle on expenses, and number three, we rebalanced our tax system that made sure that the highest earners in this country paid significantly more than before. Do you want me to give you an example how much the highest earners in this country pay now compared to when we came into office?
Yes, and that's.
But let me pull up my tax model because it's right here, and I will say it, and the numbers will scare people.
Tax changes.
So let's go to the top level. People are making $1 million a year, right? You ready for this?
Yes.
Pay $36,000 more in taxes a year. Sorry, $38,000 more in taxes a year than they did when we came into office. People who are making, let's go 500,000. Is that the line? 500,000 are paying $10,000 more a year in taxes than they did when we came into office. Whereas people at the bottom, people at the lower level, people, anyone who is making basically $130,000 or less is paying less taxes. Anyone who's making $130,000 or more is paying more taxes. We rebalanced the tax system, and we were able to collect additional revenue because we increased taxes on high earners inside of this economy, which enabled us, while at the same point in time, lowering it on workers, which enabled us to collect additional revenue, which enabled us to get to a balanced budget. That is very simple. It is the very basis of what I entered politics in when I first became junior minister of finance in 2010. I spoke about making the tax system more fair. Those in the lower level need to pay less. Those in the higher level need to pay more. We've done that. It got us to a balanced budget, enables us to make those investments. And it's also important to note that people who happen to believe that corporate income tax just fell into our lap is a nonsense.
Okay.
Because let's be clear, it is a global rule, but you will know that there are some countries that did not implement it.
Oh, right. And that's talking about that real quick because
accept that.
Yeah.
Because they were afraid, because they couldn't do it, because they didn't know how, they didn't know which way, they didn't have the expertise. I don't know whatever reason.
Yes.
We worked with our international business partners, sat down, got in rooms, and said, how do we make this work for us?
Gotcha. Okay.
That is what this government did. And so the view that, and remember, because you were in Parliament when we passed that bill.
Yes.
And you remember the OBA like, oh, well, come on now. So the reality is that we were able to deliver it. We were able to deliver it with international business support. ABIC, ABIR, Bilter, all on board, continuing to push through. And now we're seeing companies come to this jurisdiction due to the corporate income tax setup that we've put into place. That is now leading us to the space where we are now able to deliver significant budget surpluses, reduce our debt, invest in healthcare, invest in our infrastructure in this country, and get to a space where Bermuda can eliminate its debt and have a sovereign wealth fund to invest for the future. That is what this budget and the foundations that it has set. It has had responsible choices which are going to benefit Bermudians like young Callan in the future.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. I was going to ask you, what is your legacy? And I think that is it in some respects in terms of,
I don't focus on legacy, Anthony.
But you do. But
someone also write it. All I did,
realistically.
No. All I did was bust my tail for 9 years.
Yes.
And there is no one who will say that David Burt does not work hard.
Correct. Gotcha.
That's all I've done. I bust my tail. I have a little fun on the side too.
Yes.
But I bust my tail.
Yes. Okay, I'll come back to you in a second. Kelly, you have any final comments you want to make before we go back to the Mr. Premier?
You like that whole corporate income tax thing? That was pretty good.
Yeah, I guess I have one more comment.
Go on.
Sometimes I feel like politics can seem a little bit childish almost.
Okay.
Just because, I was listening to the budget on Friday, and after you made a remark, someone said, I'm not sure who it was, it doesn't really matter. But
tell me the remark, though. I may have heard it.
They said, what was it?
Someone listen to the shadow.
It was like, see that shadow or watch that shadow or something like that, saying, okay, that you over-delivered based off of your promise, which the opposition didn't expect you to do, and they were kind of rubbing it in, I guess. And in my mind, sure, I understand that people were, et cetera, but it seems like that's a bit of a childish stance to be having, or a childish remark to make.
That's a Gen Z commentary, by the way.
Well, you know, Lord, don't get me started with Gen Z. I hope you're not cursed with a Gen Z curse. I hope you're.
What's the Gen Z curse?
Oh Lord, they don't. Let me stop before I get myself in trouble. What do I say? Westminster style politics is always interesting. The comment that I'll make is that sometimes you have to have a little fun in politics as well. Mm-hmm. And so I will hope to moderate my comments so that young people don't think it's childish and think that it's a little bit more mature and in jest.
It wasn't your comment.
No, I get it. Okay, no. But someone had made a comment that I was having fun, and I was actually having fun. Okay. Because, you know, when you're talking and these guys are next to you, you know, mumbling and saying all types of stuff, because they always, well, this is my view, and now I'm going to get political. Sure. They always get it wrong. Mm-hmm. They said when we came to office, we would have to raise the debt ceiling. We did not raise the debt ceiling. The only time we raised the debt ceiling was when we had to raise it to pay for Morgan's Point. Mm. So and then we had a pandemic. Right. They said that we would not be able to balance the budget. We balanced the budget. They said that we would not be able to reform taxes. We reformed taxes. They said we would not be able to implement corporate income tax and get it right without companies even, and we did it. That's the point to which I'm making. It's important that the electorate are reminded that there are credible voices and there are non-credible voices. And the opposition continues to shout into the wind when they are wrong just about every single time. And so for me, as a politician, it is important to remind, because when we get to elections, elections are about a choice, and people need to know and understand who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't know what they're talking about. Some of the stuff that we're going to get from the opposition on Friday is insane. Correct. Like, and I get some of the arguments. You know, the one thing you talk about, targeting. We cannot target in this country until we have an actual income tax. This budget says we accept the Tax Reform Commission's recommendation to implement an income tax. We're going to enhance our data collection so that a future Minister of Finance can implement an income tax. But when I hear Craig Simmons or Anand or someone else or the Shadow Minister of Finance talking about, we need to target, you cannot target these tax breaks without an income tax. You can, but that means that you have to set up a very complex system on the side, which we tried to do before, had an Auditor General's report, had things out of the yin yang. It was a lot. Yeah. It is not easy to do. And so I know it sounds good, but you also have to look at what is easy to implement, what can you implement quickly while working towards the ideal state. The future and the ideal state is an income tax. Wow. It is. It is what the Tax Reform Commission recommended, and look how far of a country we've come. Yes. We've come from a place where 30 years ago, if you spoke about income tax, you were politically dead. Correct. To a place where a bipartisan Tax Reform Commission recommends the implementation of a broad-based income tax to the country. Gotcha. That is where we've gone to, and it's important because income tax is the only tax that is not inflationary. It's the only tax that is non-inflationary. Every single other tax is inflationary. Income tax, the only non-inflationary tax. And it covers all income. We can have a low rate, which will be able to promote that. Would I have loved to implement that in the 9 years that I was Premier of the country? Absolutely. Am I pleased with where we've left the space? Yes, because we have a more fair, at least, payroll tax system, and at least a path and an understanding and a commitment from both sides of the political divide, because they are both represented on the Tax Reform Commission to advance a broad, low-rate income tax. That will be a game changer when it comes to expenses, because when we talk about the people who are at the bottom, right? Yeah. We talk about the people at the bottom. Those persons. I mean, the income tax system in Bermuda will probably be your first $100,000 you don't pay any taxes. Can you imagine? Yeah. Whereas right now, you are paying taxes on and I'm not even talking about the income of which you have. I'm talking about you're paying taxes every time you buy something, because you got this massive customs duty thing. You understand what I'm saying? And so you're paying taxes everywhere you go. Whereas in a different system, which is more fair, more right, more just, when all income is calculated, where there's someone who owns, I don't know, someone who owns 10 houses and is collecting all this, whereas the other person isn't collecting it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so income taxes are fairer. That will, the points of which you were talking about when you're talking about what is the plan, what is the other things, how do you get there, how do you put more relief? The fact is, you're right. We are getting to the end of what we can do under our existing system, and that is the reason why it's important to put in place a new one which can provide even more relief and better relief for people in the future.
Wow.
Cool?
Sure. I mean, we don't have too much time to keep talking about that subject, so.
Anything else? If you want to make another point, make the point.
Yes, and then I have to go back.
Yes.
Sure. So, I mean, I do understand. So the difference you're saying between having an income tax versus a payroll tax is that additional revenues from things like capital gains and things from rent income and all that type of stuff would be taxed under.
Yeah.
Yes, income tax is taxing of all incomes.
Correct. Okay.
And that's a challenge right now. You're tax labor income.
Right.
And so currently, with the current payroll structure and the budget surplus, like if we look 10 years forward in the future with the corporate income receipts and depending on how that might vary, with that income already there, are you saying that we would shift from the current tax system, which relies on duty, payroll, and now a bit of corporate income tax, to just income tax?
To more of a personal income tax. That's a recommendation of the Tax Reform Commission. Absolutely.
Okay.
Which makes sense, right? So that, for example, right now, if you have other non-employment income that's not being taxed, if you tax everything, you can do it at a lower level and still get the same amount of money.
No, I understand it from a macro perspective.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So, final comments, or you had your final comments already?
I think I gave my final comments.
Well, I'll see.
I just like, interacting and having this conversation. It's a pleasure to join Callan and Anthony, the Richardson and Burt show today. Even though Ms. Ball is there. We're in the quarter as well.
For sure. And I will say thank you again. Obviously, this is our 4th anniversary, and we started
today.
Today's our not necessarily today, but just the occasion. So it's the budget. It's the 4th interview with you post-budget. And I like to say that I get the first full interview with you after the budget stage, because it's on Friday, and then there's nothing but some general stuff, and then it's me, and then Monday morning is the budget breakfast. And so I want to say thank you for that. And also to the listening audience, have them understand that this is not pre-planned. I don't say, for example, here are my 50 questions, come and answer them. It's a conversation.
No, you
and with Kelly
questions, so and Kelly was,
exactly.
It was bowling some bumpers right there.
No, but it's good in terms of this is what I like to do, because it's not like a got you situation. It's more or less whoever's on the show, they have the expertise. You just ask questions to things that they should know. And then we go from there. They don't know for that reason, we get the questions. So I want to say thank you again. Enjoy the budget thing tomorrow, the budget breakfast tomorrow. And then now there's an extended format, the economic forum that follows right after that, to see how that goes. And to the listening audience, please pay attention, because first of all, we get the economic debate on Friday, which should be very, very interesting. We get the OBA reply, or the opposition reply to the budget, and we go from there. And so stay tuned. The budget has an impact on all of us, and tonight we've learned some new things and looking forward to learning more things, and of course to ultimately have an interview with the Premier before he doesn't run for election again, and really talk about his legacy, what he's done, what he would want to do, and what are the next steps, because there's obviously David Burt 2.0, which is post-election. Of course there is. You're young. You still got to live and move on, so that's what will happen. So you have some conversation around that. All right?
I'm going home to my family.
Yes.
To my wife and to my kids, who've had to share me with the country for the last 9 years. That is all.
Trust me.
There's no rocket science to this. I really want people to focus less on me.
Yes.
Less on me. I'm just one man. I'm blessed with gifts from the Creator, and I've been fortunate to be able to go ahead and to share those gifts with the country of which I was born. But that's just me. Times will change.
Yes,
the country will be fine. Everyone is so caught up on me. I need people to be less caught up. No, it is an entire government. I did not put this budget statement together by myself.
Understood.
There was a team of 15 people, 12 ministers, all pitching in. The government will continue the same things that have laid out in our election manifesto before, unless we go back to the polls, is exactly what the government is bound to execute on.
But you have been the leader for the past 9 years, the youngest one, and lots of things are taking place. And so I'll leave it for now. But anyway, to the listening audience, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here again on Magic 102.7 on your Sunday evening for another show, another Insight show. It's been 4 years for me. We'll now get into our 5th year. And I'll close by saying this, as I always say, if you're out on the roads, please wear a high visibility vest or a light or something so people can see, because there are too many collisions taking place. And for those that are driving or operating vehicles, please somehow, let's figure it out, because every day now there seems to be a collision, which is not an accident, by the way, a collision, which is based upon inattention, speed, under the influence,
stay out
so
of your phone.
Please. Yeah.
It's very simple.
Is it phones? Whatever it is.
Use your phone when driving.
Please, because, it's just ridiculous. And so again, thank you. We'll be back next week with another edition of Insight, another focus on finances. I won't say what it's about yet because the premier is here, but anyway, that's what we're going to be doing next week. And so to all, have a great evening. Good night, Bermuda.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.